Conservation or mining? Bats or limestone? Which is the more important in what is, after all, a very old and very familiar argument? Well, of course, that depends on which side of the fence you sit. On one hand, limestone is an essential ingredient in the making of cement. But when the great majority of the Australian population of little bent-wing bats are endangered, which takes priority? Well, as I say, it's not a new dilemma. But here's Murray McLaughlin's interpretation of how the sides are lining up and of what's at stake.
The Caves Township, 15 miles north of Rockhampton. The district is promoted as a tourist attraction, but the main traffic through the small township is not visitors' cars, but heavy trucks. They carry limestone mined from nearby Mt Etna. Early this century, visitors would take a day trip by buggy to climb the mountain, and in the 1920s it was proclaimed a recreation reserve. That status has since been revoked. Leases have been let to allow mining for limestone. The leases are held by Central Queensland Cement, which has a cement plant a few miles further south. Conservationists are upset. Mt Etna contains 46 known caves in a small area of about 12 hectares. It's the most densely cavernous limestone in Australia. The mining leases cover all the caves, including Bat Cleft, a unique cave which is the maternity site for the little bent-wing bat. 80% of Australia's population of the little bent-wing live here, but because of mining, they're under threat. Several hundred people a year visit Bat Cleft to watch the evening flight of bats. Central Queensland Cement have so far not prevented these nighttime visits, but the company's foreman took strong exception to our daytime presence on the mountain.
What are you fellas doing here?
Sorry?
What are you fellas doing here?
We're taking some film.
Would you mind getting your butts out of here, thank you? You want that stuff down your throat?
Could you leave our gear alone, please?
Would you like to get off this mining lease, thank you?
Sure.
Well, away you go.
Excuse me, I'll take that.
Righto, away you go.
Excuse me, I'll take it.
Well, go on, take it and go, please. We're working here.
Why the heaviness?
Come on, where you go.
Why the heaviness?
No heaviness. You fellas have got a pretty good cheek coming on without asking.
Confrontations have been regular between the quarry management and Norm Pursehouse. He farms a small market gardening property under the north face of Mt Etna and quite close to the quarries. He claims that his property was being showered with blasted limestone and that it took a long legal wrangle to win conditions from the company that he would be adequately warned of an impending quarry explosion.
This should have been from the word go, not after I had to spend a lot of money through legal fees going to a solicitor and threaten to take him to court. And they should have been getting me originally. I shouldn't have to fight for this, as Mr. Cam said it was in the Act.
What about the long-term effects of mining here? What worries have you got there?
Oh, well, there's a low hill beside Mt Etna here that they're demolishing at the present time. This must have a lot of effect on this farm. We're a small crop farm, and southern drift on the property must let frost drift in, and also there's water to be taken into consideration. We've got a lot of underground water at the present time, but if they do keep mining on that hill and also put roads around Mt Etna, where this water must be coming from, it must diminish.
This is Bat Cleft, the maternity cave for the little bent-wing bat. From early December, more than 120,000 females concentrate 90 feet below to give birth. By February, they've dispersed again. The Australian Speleological Federation says the cave is unique and mining should be stopped. National Vice President Glenn Pure.
Well, Bat Cleft Cave on Mt Etna, which is the maternity site, that is to say the breeding site for this particular population of bats, has a very special structure. It has a very deep entrance cleft, and it has an avon down in the lower part of the cave where the bats accumulate. Now, the female bats generate quite a large amount of heat for incubation of their young, which is trapped in this part of the cave by its structure. This is critical to the survival of the newly born bats because they lack fur, are very small and can't control their body temperature. There is no other cave for perhaps 1,000 kilometres that we know of which has a structure vaguely resembling this. But it's interesting to note that several hundred of the bats have moved into a stormwater tunnel in Rockhampton only after mining operations began. We believe that the mining operations are upsetting the bats quite considerably, They're now using, or rather a small population of these bats is now using the stormwater tunnel as a maternity site. Obviously the stormwater tunnel is no alternative at all to Mt Etna because simply the small size of the colony there, and most importantly the bat population is washed out of there every time it rains.
The speleologists say that if mining stopped immediately, it would not be too late to save the network of caves and to revegetate the mountain faces. But the Queensland government has not been impressed by any arguments of conservation. The man who could allay the threat to the little bent-winged bat is Minister of Mines Ron Cam.
Well, if the people concerned in the area of Queensland who want cement at a reasonable price would rather have a colony of bats, well, I consider that the demands of society in that region are more important, because these bats, it has been proved that they breed in many parts of this part of the world. And as a matter of fact, we've had evidence of them breeding in stormwater culverts in the Rockhampton district. And they're not a unique bird. It's true that there's a big nursery in the Mt Etna region, but this has been promoted and argued about now, to my knowledge, for about 15 years.
But it doesn't bother you that there might be a threat to them?
What, a threat to bats? No, because I think that the mining of limestone and the provision of cement at a reasonable price is more important at this juncture than a colony of bats. Now, people might say that I'm hard in that respect, but these bats can transfer to other areas.
Mt Etna may well be a ready source of cheap limestone, say the conservationists, but they claim there are suitable alternative sites in the Rockhampton region. Central Queensland Cement began mining on Mt Etna in the mid-60s. Official estimates put the deposit of limestone at the base of Mt Etna at more than 30 million tonnes. But if the cavernous part of the mountain is left intact, only a minor portion of this reserve would be available. Limestone resources of the Rockhampton region have been surveyed by the Queensland Department of Mines. The Minister, Mr Cam, had earlier said the caves area contained the only suitable deposits of limestone for cement manufacture. But the Mines Department Geological Survey report tells a different story.
There are extensive deposits of limestone in the Rockhampton region other than those at Mt Etna. And in fact it referred to deposits, for example, at Horrigan Creek, which is south of Rockhampton, which in the words of the report could possibly support the demands of a major limestone consuming industry. Mr Cam has ignored us on this point. I don't know whether it is him ignoring us or whether he just doesn't know what's going on in his own department. But certainly we haven't been satisfied at all with the government's attitude regards this geological report and the whole idea of alternative limestone deposits to those at Mt Etna.
Would you rather us discontinue mining to save a colony of bats, or would you rather us go and destroy some fertile dairying country to get at the limestone underneath? That's the question. And as far as other deposits in the area, yes, there are other deposits, but the economics of mining them are such that we agree with the companies concerned that the two better places to mine in the Rockhampton area at the present time is Mt Etna and down in the Mount Larkham region.
The popularity of Mt Etna led to its being gazetted as a recreation reserve in 1920. In 1977, conservationists planned to challenge through the courts the granting of the mining leases. Their grounds were that the mining excluded the public from a recreation reserve and was causing substantial alteration to the landscape. The action required the leave of the Queensland Attorney-General, Mr Lickus, to proceed. He refused to grant that leave, and 6 days before the refusal, the government revoked the gazetting of Mt Etna as a recreation reserve.
This is one of the things that was just simply rubber stamped through the appropriate government departments. There was a recreation reserve on the mountain. They applied for the leases. The Mines Department obviously didn't see any hassles in granting leases on the recreation reserve. Later on we got legal opinion that genuine grounds existed for a legal challenge over this, but very soon afterwards the government removed the recreation reserve from the mountain, so we can't win on any front with the government on this issue.
And mining leases take precedence in that regard. But a recreation area does not preclude the mining of any substance. It's a national park. If it was a national park, we would never have interfered with it. And that's one thing that in Queensland that we don't do. We don't mine in national parks. Now that's not the case in many other countries.
Well, why did you know, if you're not bothered about it, why did you de-gazette it?
Because we didn't want it as a recreation area, we wanted it as a mining lease.
Just as simple as that?
Simple as that. We wanted it as a mining lease, yes. If it had been a national park, it would have stayed as a national park.
Do you think that's a responsible method of government, gazetting, de-gazetting, according to the whim of mining companies?
No, it's not the whim of mining companies. That's where you fellas make a mistake. It's not the whim of a mining company. It's the demands of society that want that product. If society didn't demand cement, if they didn't demand copper, if they didn't demand a replacement of lead in paints, there'd be no mining taking place. No mining would take place whatsoever. But when the society demands a cement at a reasonable price, and there's immense deposits of limestone in an area, and there has been a lease granted in that area, well then we go ahead and mine it.
Cement at a reasonable price, or the preservation of a unique cave formation? While people argue, the little bent-wing bat remains threatened.
And as I said, it's an old dilemma. Murray McLaughlin reporting from Mt Etna, and that's how it looks nationwide tonight. We'll be back for another look at 9:30 tomorrow night. Good night.